Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and this video will be coming out, I believe, Christmas Eve, at least in American time zones, so Merry Christmas to those who celebrate it. We're going to have an assortment of some holiday-ish uh, Nintendo music, mostly, going on in the background, so I hope you enjoy. And let's get into what you all voted for the next video, being Dusclops, who I'm calling the Krampus of ADV. It's a naughty kind of guy there. Or I guess really Krampus's lore is that he punishes naughty children, right? Well, maybe in that case, Snorlax should be the naughty one. So here's the poll results from Halloween. A good number of you voted for Dusclops as a pretty spooky Pokemon. I kind of agree. It's like a mummy, right? That's got to be kind of spooky, right? But Banette is also extremely creepy, and that definitely ups its scare factor. But there was no gimmick to this last poll that I took. I just asked if you guys wanted to see a video on Suicune or Dusclops, and the Suicune fans, you're just SOL. Once again, I think I asked a long time ago if you guys wanted to see a Zapdos or a Suicune video, and, well, I still haven't done a Suicune video, so you can kind of guess how that went. But maybe next year. So Suicune fans, don't worry about it. But Dusclops doing pretty good in 2 polls. That's sick for Dusclops. Just a major W for our boy. But let's take a look at the viability rankings to see if that's a W. With the updated viability rankings, I don't know if Dusclops really moved that significantly. I think it's kind of about the same spot that it was in the last year's viability rankings, but it's chilling right there in the bottom left corner at number 48. Shoutouts to 48, who is a great gamer, who I beat in Revival, by the way. Not like it was the highlight of my tournament run or anything. That was probably the best player that I beat, so big props to you, 48. Alright, enough glazing myself, though. As we see, Dusclops is getting a little bit more love than Baby Gronk, who's sitting at 51, just below Glalie, right there. We talked about that Pokemon in a previous video. If you want to know about it, you should go look at my the Baby Gronk situation in ADV or something like that. So, yeah, but Dusclops is not getting quite as much love as Misdreavus, who's in the higher 40s, right above Porygon 2. I think that might have to do with how strong the particular Misdreavus team is. There are not very many teams that Misdreavus can fit on. Dusclops fits on, like, a handful more. It's a slightly more versatile, but it's also not necessarily one of the better Pokemon for the roles that it fulfills. But we'll talk a little bit more about it later. 48, not a bad ranking at all. But comment question of the day, or week, I guess. I don't really make daily videos, huh? Which Pokemon gives you the most trouble in the builder? The reason why I asked this is because I feel like a lot of people would say Snorlax. Well, maybe I would say Snorlax because I like to run a lot of sandless teams. But, yeah, Snorlax is a Pokemon that gives me some problems. So, I think that Dusclops is going to be quite good into Snorlax, as I kind of alluded to on the first slide. Another Pokemon that gives me some trouble, I guess I shouldn't be saying too much in case anybody has to play me in tournament, but Heracross is a Pokemon that, surprisingly, I tend to struggle with. Also probably because I don't run a lot of Sandless teams. But, you know, you never know. I will switch my style up to help myself out there, I guess. Moving on. Actually, coincidentally, Dusclops is pretty good into Heracross as well, so maybe what I'm learning is I need to do more Dusclops teams. But as Dusclops is a ghost type, we of course need to talk about Spinblocking, which is one of the best pieces of utility that a ghost type can give to a team. Rapid Spin being the only move that removes spikes, will not work if it fails, which means that if it goes into a ghost type who is immune to it, you will not get the spin off. So these are the ghost types here. Shedinja is there by technicality, I guess, because that Pokemon just... it's not great. But, yeah. All these Pokemon are going to block spin. Gengar and Misdreavus have particularly good utility as spin blockers because they have the ability to levitate, which means that their teams anyway, can trade spikes, and you don't have to worry about your spin blocker getting punished for going for a spikes trade. Whereas with the other grounded ghost types, particularly Dusclops here, which does not have immediate recovery like Sableye, and is not just kind of balls to the wall like Banette, it's the one that's going to be the most heavily affected by the spikes. It's going to affect its game plan the most, you should say. Well, I mean, Shedinja. But forget that Pokemon for a moment. Yeah. Dusclops does not have immediate recovery like Sableye. It wants to sit around and be a wall. So it's going to have to be a little bit more crafty with how it chooses to do its spin blocking. I think it's probably going to be what I would call like the most conservative spin blocker. Like, you can't really switch it into spin all the time. Sometimes you're going to have to just accept that your opponent will spin and you'll have to re-establish the spikes later. But then maybe later in the game, it'll be a really effective spin blocker once you've gotten rid of spikes, potentially if you've gotten rid of sand, although I don't think that Dusclops absolutely needs sand removed. But let's get on to Pursuit Trapping, which is the main method by which spin teams will try to remove the spin blocker. Pursuit is a dark type move that deals double damage to a Pokemon that's switching out. And because Dark is super effective to Ghost, it's effectively a 4 times damage move to these Ghost types that are switching out. So the common trappers are going to be all of these Dark types here. Tyranitar, Umbreon, and Houndoom. There are some other Pokemon that get Pursuit, like Metagross and Aerodactyl and Sceptile. Although those Pokemon are a little bit more rare to see with Pursuit. So I wouldn't put so much stock into them, plus they're all usually going to be pretty weak, so at least with their pursuits, so I would not worry so much about them for your ghost types. Now Sableye is kind of laughing here because Sableye is the only ghost type that is not weak to dark thanks to its secondary dark type, so it can kind of switch out of Pursuit. Now, I wouldn't laugh too hard if I was Sableye, because Sableye also has one of the worst special defense stats of all of the ghosts, so it's still going to be taking a pretty hefty chunk from a switched out Pursuit. Dusclops, of course, does not like to get Pursuit trapped, but it has the highest SPDEF of all of the ghost types, so it can, in a sense, get away with getting trapped sometimes. Yeah, depending on which trapper it is, you may just live 2 pursuits, which is not something that most of these ghost types can do. Definitely not Shedinja. Though every ghost is capable of running enough investment to live Tyranitar's Pursuit. I mean, technically, they can live Houndoom's Pursuit as well, but, like, if you're running max SPDEF on Gengar, like, you're doing something wrong. So, I wouldn't recommend that. Dusclops has superb defensive stats. As you see right here, it's got the 130s in both defense and special defense. The bugaboo with Dusclops is that it has a really low HP stat, though. Only 40 is not fantastic. But it is bulkier, technically, on the special side than Misdreavus is. If we take a look at, say, a modest Zapdos Thunderbolt, which I think is a decent benchmark for testing how good a Pokemon is as a special wall, Dusclops is going to be taking 41 max, whereas Misdreavus is taking 44. Now, that doesn't really change the rolls all that significantly, but it does mean that Dusclops could live 3 Thunderbolts if the Zapdos rolls low enough. It's not like completely terrible odds to do so either. So, keep that in mind. I probably wouldn't put too much stock into it because sand getting involved is going to complicate your life as Dusclops, but not that Misdreavus is that much less complicated in that case. The biggest knock on Dusclops, though, is its spike weakness. That makes it pretty difficult to trade your spikes against other spikes teams. And considering that Dusclops is a ghost type, you do tend to want to pair it with spikes. Not every ghost type needs spikes with it, but Dusclops definitely prefers it because it's going to be on these slower paced teams that are going to have a little bit of a struggle to win the game without spikes. So, yeah, Dusclops is going to be on spikes if for no other reason than it's on these really fat, slow-paced teams. Yeah, there you go, Skarmory being a menace once again. Skarmory's one of the biggest gatekeepers of viability, I feel like. Like, Magneton can only do but so much for you to get some real crap monster work. But let's divert a little bit and talk about Pain Split. Pain Split is a niche healing option that will split HP between the user and the target. There are a handful of Pokemon that get this. Weezing is probably one of the more commonly useful Pain Splitters, but Dusclops is probably the poster child for it. And it synergizes actually pretty well with Dusclops' stat spread, believe it or not. So, let's say we had a 252 HP EV Dusclops, which is what most Dusclops are going to be, and it's at 50%, so that means it's sitting at 142 raw HP, versus a Blissey that has no HP investment, which is, again, the more common Blissey set. That means it has 651. We'll do a little bit of math here. Don't worry, it's not complicated math. We're just taking the average. We add both items, divide by the number of items, which is 2, and then because damage rounds down in Pokemon, we're going to floor it, which means that we're rounding down to the nearest integer. So that's going to be 396. What does that mean? That means that Blissey will lose 396 hit points, and Dusclops will gain 396 hit points. And the effect of that is Dusclops is going to heal to 100%. In fact, it would heal a lot. It could heal basically to 200% almost, which is kind of funny. Of course, you can't be above 100% HP in Pokemon. And Blissey will go down to 61%. So a move that healed our Dusclops to full brought Blissey down to nearly 3/5 of its original HP stat. The lower HP that Dusclops has, the better damage it will do to the Blissey. You can get almost down to 50% on the Blissey, like if you use it at basically like 1% HP, and you will get all of the healing back because Dusclops has less than half the HP stat that Blissey does, which is kind of funny. I think you could set up for certain things, like say you have a Pokemon that would love to be in one-on-one on Blissey, but it doesn't necessarily want to switch into, say, like an Ice Beam or a Thunder Wave or a Toxic or whatever. You could have Dusclops set up the Blissey to have to go for Soft Boiled, and then switch your Pokemon in, like if it, let's say it's like Metagross or whatever. Could be an interesting thing to do. It's also nice into other high HP Pokemon like Snorlax, which are going to more commonly want to be going for the 1v1 against. Or you could even use like Focus Punch, force that Blissey to Soft Boiled and Focus Punch it on the turn that it does. All these things are really cool, and this is one of the best Pokemon at abusing Pain Split, kind of because it has such a low HP stat. But let's talk about Santalax here, the ho-ho-ho of ADV. Um, Curse Restlax is notoriously difficult to deal with fat and stall teams, especially if you're sandless. Uh, this is the set that is kind of in mind when we're thinking about Curse Restlax. Curse Rest, obviously going to be on that set. And then usually a normal move and then a coverage move. Commonly, you're going to see Shadow Ball as the pick because otherwise you're going to be struggling to hit Gengar with your Earthquake. And you would have to pair it with Pursuit support. And Curse Restlax does not love to be on a sand team. I mean, it can certainly work, but sand is one of the things that checks a Curse Restlax because it means that it's not getting that healing across the board. It's going to be forced to rest early, which means that you can go to, say, like a phaser to handle it. This is last song, by the way, was Snowball Park from Super Mario World. I kind of prefer Super Mario Land as a game, but I do prefer the soundtrack in World. It's got a really good orchestration. But, well, I mean orchestration, I should say, a mix, because it's probably a MIDI. But Toy Day from Animal Crossing New Leaf here, which is also superior to the New Horizons version of this song. I'm on a super tangent here, but get back to Santalax. I'm not BKC. I can only go away from the topic at hand for a couple minutes, not just the whole video. Yeah, so you don't love to pair it with a Pursuit Trapper, particularly Tyranitar. So Snorlax oftentimes has to run Shadow Ball to be able to hit Gengar, as well as other ghosts. Though some teams will get crafty and they'll find a way to stick Earthquake on there. Hidden Power, Bug, and Steel are very niche, and I have not personally seen them that much. So I wouldn't put like a ton of stock into them, but that's fine because your ghost types will take those moves quite well, especially HP Bug. So the question kind of becomes, how do you stop a Curse Restlax with a sandless fat team? The goal for the Curse Restlax player is going to be to get to like +3, +4, and then just start like one or two shotting all of your walls as they're like incapable of doing anything. Well, the first thing you can do is you can trade into it with like a more offensive piece like Metagross. If Metagross can explode on Lax, that generally is going to be a W for this sandless fat team that you have, unless they have some other Pokemon that are going to take advantage of your passivity in some way, shape, or form. But not every team can really afford to support a Pokemon like Metagross, although that's kind of actually fake news because Metagross fits on so many teams. It's a really, really good glue piece. But, sometimes you want to have a little bit more defensive utility in other ways, and you don't really value Metagross for that purpose. Then you can try to stall it out here, and there's a baby Gronk who is notoriously good at stalling out Santalax, but it's not perfect. Let's actually talk about what you can do to stall this evil, jolly giant here. So, in particular, we're going to be looking at Shadow Ball Lax, as Shadow Ball is going to be able to threaten most of the ghost types. Although there are a handful of exceptions where Earthquake would be better, and by that I mean literally on Sableye. But we'll note that when we get there. So Gengar first is not really that good at stalling out a Shadow Ball Lax. The best that you can usually do is get a Will-O-Wisp on it, and then you can explode to stop it from getting so many curse boosts. If you have something like a Dugtrio to follow up with, Dugtrio is quite good at killing a Snorlax, especially one that's been burned and boomed on. If the Snorlax goes for Shadow Ball first to hit the Gengar, then and you land your Wisp, then this is actually a decent line to take. It depends on the game situation a little bit, but that's quite good. If it gets its curse, though, your Boom is going to be a little bit weaker, and your follow-up to Dugtrio is not going to be as consistent at getting that kill on Snorlax, so you may have to get a little bit more creative. You could also occasionally run Hypnosis and Focus Punch to hit the Snorlax, but I don't really love that strategy. You're betting the game on a 60% chance to get the sleep. Snorlax could wake up on the first turn thereafter to stop your Focus Punch. And also they could just switch as you go for the Focus Punch, and then your Gengar kind of has two moves that it's not able to click on whatever the switch in is, so it's not fantastic. But, you know, it's an option still. Now we have Sableye, who is, in theory, one of the better Pokemon at walling Snorlax. You will knock off its leftovers and go for Seismic Toss to force it to rest. You have Recover to get immediate HP back, and then you can use Psych Up to copy the Lax's Curse defense boosts. You'll also copy its attack boosts and its speed debuffs, but those don't really matter for Sableye. The goal with Sableye is just to force the Lax to rest. Then you can go to a Pokemon that can handle the Lax, like a Phaser, or even better, a Hazer, because that will stop a Lastmon Snorlax situation. Though this is not a perfect strategy for the Sableye, because once the Snorlax has enough attack boost, if it critically hits the Sableye, I mean, it will just kill it. And then, what do? So your strategy with Sableye long-term against Snorlax cannot really be to just stall it out of PP, because you're going to get crit eventually, and it doesn't really matter whether the Lax has Shadow Ball or Earthquake. Both of those moves will kind of screw you over as the Sableye. Next we have Shedinja, which can beat a Curse Rest Lax as long as it doesn't have Shadow Ball. If it does have Shadow Ball, you are screwed, but if it doesn't, there you go. I mean, it's kind of cool, right? You also have to make sure that there are no spikes and that there is no sand up either, because otherwise you are only going to be beating Snorlax for a turn maximum. So, yeah. Then lastly, this group of Pokemon here has the combination of Shadow Ball and Imprison. Imprison's a really interesting move. It sets a status on your Pokemon that makes it so that your opponent cannot click moves that your Pokemon has in its moveset. So, in the case of Snorlax, right, it's got Shadow Ball as its only move to hit the Ghost types. I mean, Earthquake sometimes, right? It would hit Banette, it would hit Dusclops, it would hit Sableye. But Shadow Ball is going to be the best move for hitting most of these Pokemon. If you use Imprison, then Snorlax is not able to click Shadow Ball anymore. So it's going to have to click Body Slam or Return, which you're immune to. And then it's going to have to rest. But you can even pair Imprison with the move Rest, and then Snorlax can't even click Rest anymore. And then you can put a Will-O-Wisp on it as well. So that means that Snorlax, if it tries to stay in versus your Imprison Shadow Ball Ghost type, and especially if you have Rest, it is getting Wisped, and it is losing HP, and it is forced to either switch out or slowly die to the burn. So it's kind of evil, but it's evil genius. I will mention that Misdreavus does not get access to Will-O-Wisp, so you don't really have that as a strategy so much for Misdreavus. Also, I would not really recommend doing a Shadow Ball Imprison strategy on Misdreavus. Yes, it will make you very effective at beating Snorlax, because Snorlax will not really ever have a move to hit you as the Mischievous unless it has like Hidden Power Steel. Even the utility Lax will not have a move to hit Mischievous. But you are giving up 2 move slots on Mischievous for Shadow Ball and Imprison, which means that you don't have enough move slots to also have Rest, Mean Look, and Perish Song. And those 3 moves are basically required on Mischievous. So, yeah, I wouldn't really do it. And then Banette, yeah, I mean it can do the strategy, but Banette sucks. So I wouldn't I wouldn't recommend doing it. If you're going to use Banette at all, you can check out my Banette video. That is a kind of team that you can use. I would definitely play around with the sets because what I did with it was just one like really niche thing. You could probably get a little bit more consistency out of it than that, but I mean, you'll know more about it if you watch that video. But I would be remiss not to mention that there is one other Pokemon that has this combination of traits that's not Shuppet, and that's Duskull. And you might say, well, why do I even care about Duskull in this argument? Well, technically, Dusclops is going to be hit by Earthquake, so it's not going to be 100% guaranteed effective at stalling out the entire Curse Rest Lax. If it has Earthquake rather than Shadow Ball, or if it has Earthquake rather than its normal move, which is sometimes seen. It's quite rare, but it's not impossible. Yeah, well, Duskull has an advantage over its father, Dusclops, because it has the ability Levitate. So if you manage to get the Imprison off with Duskull, then Snorlax will not be able to hit you. You still have Will-O-Wisp, so you can still do that whole strategy. And yeah, so Duskull may be better. Not really. Its stats are so bad. But it's kind of interesting. It can do some funny things. Yeah. Here's the Smogon set for Dusclops. These moves here, I kind of combined 2 sets, the Staller and the Rest Talk. So you could have Rest Sleep Talk as a sort of option with this Dusclops. That's not a very commonly seen set like anymore, because Dusclops is so easily taken advantage of by boosters. Especially if you're like relying on Rest, Sleep Talk, Will-O-Wisp, and a fixed damage move like Nightshade or Seismic Toss. Like a Sub Suicune is just smoking your whole pack. Hell, even like Sub Zapdos can be a problem for this. Or Calm Minders that don't really mind getting wisped. Yeah, so kind of brutal. I'm going to read off some of the things that are written on here that give you kind of an impression of when this set was in the zeitgeist. Dusclops is good for a few things, but your main reason for using it will likely be its ability to spin block. In fact, barely any spinners can get past it. This is one of the reasons people run Magneton instead of a hardy spinner and forego Claydol for Donphan, who can hit Dusclops hard on the switch with a Stab Earthquake off of its base 120 attack. So, yes, believe it or not, there was a time in ADV's history where Donphan was preferred to Claydol because Donphan would hit Dusclops harder. That's so backwards from what the metagame's like now, because I would think that most people would say Claydol's better than Donphan because it hits the primary spin blocker, which is Gengar, harder with its Psychic. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, Dusclops did actually used to be the prominent spin blocker in the tier. I don't know if it was always considered or ever considered like more viable than Gengar, but because of its defensive prowess, people did prefer it in early ADV on a good number of teams now. We've evolved such that Gengar's kind of eclipsed Dusclops' utility, but Dusclops, as we'll see, is going to be useful for certain things that Gengar can't really do. We kind of just talked about it as a Snorlax check, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of mostly it, but yeah. With Shadow Ball, this is one of the best Gengar counters in the game. I mean, I'm going to contend, like, I don't even know if I would say this is like top 5 best Gengar counters in the game. Like, it is good, don't get me wrong, especially if you have Shadow Ball as your Sleep Talk variant, but it's kind of not nice. If Gengar has Hypnosis or Will-O-Wisp, Dusclops can function as usual, and may even surprise a physical attacker with Sleep Talk Will-O-Wisp. It is a great sleep absorber, and switch into Pokemon such as Breloom and Jinx. So it's kind of interesting. Usually you would Sleep Sack something else to get your Dusclops in on something like Breloom, but if you have Sleep Talk, you could just go straight to the Dusclops and then fish for a Sleep Talk Will-O-Wisp on whatever the switch-in is. I mean, it's a little bit fishy, but it's not completely terrible. All right, switching up the music here, we're going to go with this guy here. This is from Octopath Traveler, which is a fantastic game. Okay, I shouldn't say it's a fantastic game. It's got fantastic visuals. I like its OST, and I like its battle system. I don't like its pacing, and I don't love the story. So, it's a good game. Although I ought to play it again, though, because it was fun. Another thing that you'll notice here is that 36 attack investment. It's like, why even bother with that? Well, thankfully, whoever wrote this kind of gave some inclination for what the EVs were for. 36 attack EVs will make Shadow Ball a guaranteed OHKO on Alakazam. I don't think that is really at all relevant anymore in today's metagame. I think that Alakazam, if it is run, a lot of times it's running some defense investment because it's just not really that good at being like the fast special attacker that it is in, say, like Gen 5. So yeah, I wouldn't even really consider this a real consideration anymore. Just take that 36 attack and put it into your Spadef. Yeah. There is another set that Dusclops can use. It does have access to Calm Mind and Ice Beam, which is kind of an interesting combination. You could, even on this set, if you wanted to, run like Nightshade or Seismic Toss. In case you are using this as a sort of dedicated counter to other Calm Minders. Ice Beam is not going to be able to break through all of the Calm Minders. Like Jirachi could be an issue for you. Raikou can kind of be an issue for you as well, considering that you have a really low special attack stat, and if you're boosting alongside Raikou, it can just get a sub up and you won't be able to break it. Whereas if you have a fixed damage move like that, you will break a Raikou sub. It helps you out against Suicune quite a bit as well. But I don't know if this is the best set for Dusclops. The write-up mentions that Thunder Punch and Fire Punch are alternative attacks if you want to use those on this set. Could help you out against things like Jirachi with Fire Punch or Suicune with Thunder Punch. But again, I don't know if I would even really go that route. I think probably Nightshade or Seismic Toss would be better. Other things are that this set is just asking to get crit. Especially if you're using it as what I'm kind of suggesting as being a way to stall other CMers. You're just a lot of times going to get critically hit, and you're going to lose the CM war with this Dusclops. Now, you could crit them, but Dusclops is particularly weak as far as CMers go. especially if you're not investing very highly in its special attack. Like, it's going to be a good deal weaker than Blissey, for example. So your crit's not always going to be able to just win through other CMers like Blissey, for example, like Jirachi. So I wouldn't really bank on that too heavily. This set could, in theory, be like a win condition for a team, but I think it's kind of just worse than Suicune at being that last Mon kind of calm Minesweeper. Suicune's just got better stats overall. Its type is a little bit less exploitable, particularly from physical attackers. Although I guess you could argue maybe that Dusclops doesn't get boomed on, so could be something. But like Metagross is still going to be super threatening to Dusclops. You kind of have to Will-O-Wisp it, which is not bad, but you're going to be taking a chunk for doing so. And if your opponent has Shadow Ball coverage somewhere, they can kind of break through you. So I don't know. It's like it's a Suicune with a different flavor, if you want to think about it like that. So I'm not a huge believer in the set, but somebody I'm sure can build it on a team and use it in a really smart way and kind of show me wrong. But this is the set that I'm going to use. I've been alluding so much to the capabilities to beat Snorlax. Let's use the set that is going to be the best at beating Snorlax. So this is Krampus, which is not at all what this set is named, but I'm coining it, so there you go. You have Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Ball, Imprison, and Rest. You must have Shadow Ball, Imprison. If you don't have those, don't have Imprison, because it doesn't make any sense. The intrusive thought is going to be, well, if I had Seismic Toss, I could beat the Snorlax down faster, so that it'll die quick. But if you get rid of Shadow Ball to make room for Seismic Toss, well, congratulations, Imprison's not doing anything for you anymore. So, yeah. Shadow Ball, I guess I'll just mention it here. You can 2-hit KO off me and defensive Gengar. You can 3-hit KO def me, which is extremely sad that we don't even get a 2-hit KO on a Pokemon that we have Stab super effective into. And we'll 3-hit KO Claydol as well. But rather than explain the defensive investment, it's just max Spadef, basically, with the caveat that we're running 101 speed. Our goal is to get in front of Lax, click Imprison, which means that Lax is now unable to click Shadow Ball against our Dusclops, and then we will Will-O-Wisp. Either we're going to hit whatever switches into the Will-O-Wisp, which there are not very many Pokemon that switch into Will-O-Wisp and are unaffected by it, literally just Moltres and Charizard, and, well, I guess Houndoom, and if you end up against a Houndoom with Dusclops, then, GG, I guess. Or the Snorlax will choose to stay in, and you will get the Wisp off and cripple the Snorlax. If they are Rest Lax, they will not be able to use Rest due to Imprison, and if they're Utility Lax, then they're stuck using Burned Earthquakes into your Dusclop, which is going to do like 25%. So that's not even really that big a deal. Note, if the Snorlax has normal and EQ coverage, Klops can still put Lax into a bad position, but +6 burned Lax will have about 30% odds to get a 2-hit KO on our Dusclops, and that's assuming Sandless. Now, if there's Sand, it's not all fantastic for Snorlax. That means it's going to die twice as fast, but it does also mean that it has a better chance to get the 2-hit KO on our Dusclops towards the end. So, yeah, keep that in mind. If you're up against that, you're going to have to get creative with your solution. If you pair this with, say, like Skarmory or... Yeah, like Skarmory. That's a perfect counter to normal EQ Lax. But normal EQ Lax is very, very commonly paired with Magneton, so be careful if you're going that angle. Though, if you're able to at least force that Snorlax to switch out and it doesn't get its rest off, then you've probably gotten a lot of chip on it with the Will-O-Wisp that Dusclops can finish the job later. So, yeah, keep that in mind. The goal with the speed here is that we want to outspeed Utility Lax. It's really, really strange that you have to run speed investment to outspeed Snorlax of all things. But yeah, Dusclops is the slowest thing in the game not named Shuckle, or not that it's not a baby Pokemon. So, you are slower than Snorlax. Now, you don't need a ton of investment to outspeed Lax, and in fact, we could even go a point lower than this to outspeed, like, the most common Snorlax spread, which is just 99 speed. Why it runs that is so that it will outspeed Aerodactyl or Jolteon if they are paralyzed. If you're mostly concerned with Curselax, we could even go down to like 97 speed, because Curselax pretty much never runs speed investment because, well, I mean, it's just going to get outsped anyway after it clicks Curse. So, but I do think that there's more utility in being faster than Utility Lax than there is in getting just a little bit more Spadef investment. Excuse me. The team structure we have here, this is going to be one of the strangest looking teams that I've ever played with. There are technically 4 UUBLs on this team. So if you're going for any sort of challenge, maybe try this. I don't know. It's kind of a cool team. This I'm calling it Krampus Double Spin Semi-Stall. This is inspired by ABR. I'm sure if you are familiar with ABR, you've probably seen him use teams that look very similar to this. I believe in ADV Revival 2, in the semifinals versus Jumpy, he brought a team that was very close to this game 3. It may have had Suicune over Vaporeon. I know he has a version of this kind of team where he has Sableye instead of Dusclops, but they're all functioning quite similarly. The goal is that we have 2 spinners to try to get away with not having a Pursuit Trapper on the team. I guess we could put a Pursuit Trapper on the team, but it would have to be over Vaporeon, which hurts our defensive capabilities, Raikou, which hurts our offensive capabilities, or like Blissey, which like super duper hurts our defensive capabilities. We could put it over one of the spinners, but then it's like, well, if you put it over Donphan, then you don't have a rock resist anymore. If you put it over Fortress, you don't have a spiker anymore. So this is kind of going to be cheating a little bit on Gengar, but we have some small text that we can catch a Gengar with, particularly Hidden Powered Ghost on Fortress. You're gonna have to. It's gonna be a very prediction-heavy game if you play this team, especially against a Gengar team. I'm just gonna put that out there. Or you're gonna have to accept that Gengar's probably booming on your Blissey. So that's another way to sort of go about it. And don't ask what you have to do against Mischievous with this team. You will not like the answer. Fortress is wanting to get a spike up ASAP so that Blissey is less easily trapped by Dugtrio. Doug is going to be a little bit of an issue because Raikou is like kind of the win condition for the team. You can certainly win by just out-fatting your opponent, but against certain matchups, you may want to like set up for Raikou to beat their setup Pokemon. So, yeah, definitely want to take care of Doug, and getting a spike down and having Ice Beam Blissey to kill the Doug thereafter is a kind of great way to handle it. Donphan should be as much as possible preserved for Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl's a real pain in the ass for this team because we don't have a rock resist outside of Donphan. So do not let this Donphan die to a special Tyranitar thinking that it's like, oh, well, Donphan is a counter to Tyranitar. Yeah, no, don't. don't let that happen. If you do know that they have a physical Tyranitar, you can use Donphan for that. In fact, I would recommend that. But you definitely want Donphan to stay out of like 2 double-edged range from CB Aerodactyl, which is honestly not as hard as it sounds. I think you take somewhere around like 22-ish% from double edge on Donphan, so you've got a lot of ways to get around it. Vaporeon is going to be the primary Metagross switch in. It's so tempting to go to Donphan, right? Because you get the really strong Earthquake onto it, but you can't do that because you're going to allow other Lastmons that typically go for their like rock coverage, like Aerodactyl, like Tyranitar, even sometimes Salamence, to win the game against this team if you do that. So Vaporeon's got to be the primary switch. And you could go to Fortress, I guess, but Fortress doesn't really have a way to pressure the Metagross on this team. You know, you don't have Earthquake on this Fortress. So, yeah. You'll also punish sub-users and Suicune with Vaporeon. I am a huge advocate for Haze Vaporeon, but this team really needs it to be Roar, because otherwise you are going to get completely stomped by certain sub-Pokemon. Particularly like, well, not exactly Charizard, because Vaporeon should still be able to 1v1 Charizard, even if Charizard's got the sub, but like, things like say Zapdos Baton passes a substitute to a Pokemon that could be walled by Vaporeon, but you can't break its sub with Vaporeon. That's where you want to get your Roar off. So, there you go. It'll also help you out with things like Snorlax or potentially Jirachi in the mid game if they're trying to win the game with those Pokemon. Although you have to be careful because, you know, Body Slam Para would suck. If it's a Thunder Jirachi, that's going to do a lot of damage to Vaporeon. So, yeah, keep your wits about you. And then we have Bulky Raikou to win end games versus some special attackers that maybe we were not able to break earlier in the game. So, like, for example, opposing Electrics like Zapdos, Jolteon, and even other Raikou. Bolt Beam Jirachi we can usually handle quite well with Raikou. CM Blissey is a really, really good one. As long as we don't get frozen. But the cool thing about Raikou is because its ability is pressure, Blissey only has but so many chances to get the hacks. So, yeah, I mean, if you're able to, like, sort of burn through some PP with your Blissey on their Blissey, that could be something. And then Gengar as well. But pretty much any of these Bolt Beam attackers, Raikou does pretty well into with the defensive investment that we have in it. So that's going to be it for the presentation. Of course, we're going to put this team to work and show some replays, which we will be doing right now. So get over to this. It's been a cool track, very ambiance. I don't know, but I don't know another great word. I'm doing a great job with my music theory here, huh? But we don't need theory. We just need to listen to some bangers. This is from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which has a fantastic OST, and if you have not listened to it, you're doing yourself a disservice. So, getting into it, this is the first game that we're going to look at here. Lead Blaziken. What the hell, man? You're going to take my whole lead fortress and crap on it, and then predict the switch in. But thankfully I have Vaporeon, which is one of the best counters to Blaziken in the format. I mean, it would be between Vaporeon and Milotic for that sort of distinction. But yeah, every time this Vaporeon hits the field on Blaziken, it is making some kind of progress. It's getting a Will-O-Wisp forcing that Snorlax to use up some PP, all that good stuff. Snorlax goes for Shadow Ball, indicating that it wants to catch that Dusclops switch, then switches up and goes for Body Slam. Fortunately, I dodge a para, and then my opponent will go to Heracross. So, let me pause here. Heracross, you would think it would be a really good target to Will-O-Wisp. There are two problems with that. One is obviously Guts, right? Duh. The other is Substitute, right? If I Will-O-Wisp into Substitute, that move is blanked, and Heracross has an opportunity to set up a Swords Dance. Against a no, boost Heracross, Dusclops is perfectly fine taking a Mega Horn or two. But if you let that thing get to +2, you're going to be in a problem because 2 Mega Horns +2 has... If it's not going to kill the Dusclops, it's going to put it really, really low. And I definitely need this Dusclops to help me out with this Snorlax. Unless my opponent is running this kind of BS with no Magneton because they think that Blaziken is a Skarmory counter, which is certainly possible. Wouldn't put it past a Blaziken user to do that. But yeah, we'll just Shadow Ball all into that Heracross. I'm going to go for a burn right away on Snorlax rather than Imprison because I know I can take a Shadow Ball quite well, and if it reveals to me to be a Curselax, then I'm already ahead of it. So I said usually the sequence you want to do is Imprison, then Will-O-Wisp. This is assuming you switch into Snorlax. And especially if the Snorlax went for a Curse first. Or if it went for a Shadow Ball and caught your Dusclops and it took Chip. But because I was a turn ahead of my opponent, I was able to go for the Wisp first, which is really good. And if that's a Utility Lax, which it's kind of being played like it is, then it's kind of dealt with already. Like, now Fortress can come in and get spikes against it. Although my opponent's going to switch to Blaziken, trying desperately to get like a critical hit with Sky Uppercut or something. I'm just going to Surf. I managed to catch the Heracross, who is going to go down to its Salac Berry. If this is Swarm Megahorn, Vaporeon should still live, so I will go for Surf. If my Vaporeon gets low, that sucks, but I can always try to get it back in the game. My opponent has not revealed a Spiker or a Sand Setter, so like Vaporeon can kind of just chip heal back up. They go to Charizard, which is like, if that's your Vaporeon switch, it's dire. It is not a good spot for you. They finally reveal their Tyranitar, which would have been great for trying to chunk into my Vaporeon earlier in the game, but whatever. I go to Donphan on their Tyranitar because I don't really need Donphan for anything else that's been revealed. And then Blaziken just crits me with Fire Blast, so that's great. I certainly lived that and certainly killed back with Earthquake otherwise, but whatever. Means that Vaporeon can get in, just set a Wish. Blaziken's just so happy to let itself die to the Vaporeon there. And then my opponent switches to Tyranitar, so like this game went from bad to horrible for my opponent. Yeah, they had to go for a Rock Slide. Even if they got the flinch, they would have to get 2 more flinches to beat the Vaporeon. And yeah, your team got 6-0'd by water, pretty much. Well, not every single water type, but Vaporeon and Milotic will just 100% beat this entire team. So don't run this team. If you're Gimme Zenta and you're watching this, I don't mean to be so harsh, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't even have to get my spikes up with Fortress. It's kind of crazy. Let's move on. Wooper Unbound. This is a gamer who's in the 1750s, playing a lot of games, trying to get a really high ladder record. I get you, Wooper Unbound, but unfortunately, you played me 3 times, and you managed to let me win 1 of them. So, sorry to spoil this, but let's take a look at this. I will admit, one of the games that I lost, I got hacked. So, all right, but I shouldn't have even said all that. I get a spike up because having played against this team, I know that a spike is really, really important. Also, my opponent knew that I had Vaporeon, so they're kind of, I don't know. It's not like their Vaporeon is not in a great spot either way. Going for a Hydro Pump is probably the best thing they could do, because if I switch to Vaporeon, then they don't have to spend their HP on a substitute. But I ended up going to Vaporeon on turn 2, so whatever. Vaporeon now in versus the Breloom as I go for Roar. So that gets that Breloom out of there. I think actually when I played this guy, I had Haze on Vaporeon because I'm so... I'm a brainlet. Let's just put it like that. I will Sleep Sack my Fortress here because I know it's not that useful to me. Now I can go to Dusclops on the Breloom, but my opponent scouts that out, gets their Tyranitar in, and I take 53%, so not a fantastic spot for my Dusclops. But Vaporeon can come in. There's not a fantastic switch into Vaporeon here. Their own Vaporeon is like an option, but like they don't want to really be in front of my Vape because they can't really do anything either. They switched to Tyranitar, I guess expecting that I would have tried to switch to Dusclops, but I just go for a Disciplined Surf. It would have gotten decent chip on the Breloom, which means that I don't have to worry about it into the end game. I could maybe wake up my Fortress and get more spikes if that's a thing that I need to do to win the game. And also, if they switch to Vaporeon, it's kind of whatever. I would just Roar and get more spikes damage on something else. But now that I've got my damage on Tyranitar, I know that Vaporeon is so likely to come in here, and I'm going to try to Roar that out, and then I get frozen. So, that's not good. I'm going to go to Blissey. This Blissey does have Aromatherapy, so I can cure the freeze on my Vaporeon, which is going to be really important because look at their team and look at how good Vaporeon is into it. I clicked Soft Boiled there for no reason. I think I just misclicked. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, even if they stay in and go for Hydro Pump, there's no reason to not just click Aromatherapy there. Well, in any case, I know that they're a DD Brick Break Salamence by that damage roll, so I can go to Dawn Fan, which will get a decent amount of damage on the Salamence at the very least. It can live another Earthquake here. Could leave another Earthquake after that even, but I get a lucky critical hit, which puts the Salamence into sand range and it dies, so that's kind of a my bad moment, but I also got frozen, and I also misclicked, so I gave up like kind of a free turn, so it is what it is. I will go back to Fortress and Sleep Sack that again. This is an important concept for a lot of teams when you're playing against Breloom, is like figuring out what Pokemon on your team is allowed to be Sleep Sacked. Usually your Spiker is not like the option that you want to go with a lot of the time, but if you've already got your Spike and basically the utility of your Spiker is just to be a wall, and I know that my opponent doesn't have like Skarmory on his team, so I don't really need the Fortress to handle that per se. Like Fortress has been super fine to just Sleep Sack. This time I will go to Dusclops, the thought being that if Tyranitar doesn't come in, then Tyranitar is going to be in a bad spot because Dusclops is going to be threatening a Will-O-Wisp into it, securing the kill on it if it does. But my opponent gets ahead of me and manages to get the Tyranitar in. I'm just going to stay in with the Dusclops and go for a Will-O-Wisp, and I miss. And now, well, this is the worst case scenario because this Tyranitar is going to end up kind of with more HP than it started with. Though I am able to get my Vaporeon in. I'm going to go for Wish, because it's the lowest drawback move that I have. And then I'm going to go for Roar. So, yeah, it gets rid of that Vaporeon quite nicely for me. I end up roaring in Raikou, though, which is not a fantastic spot to be in. But I do have a Blissey, and Blissey can Calm Mind to live the next Thunderbolt, and then it will Seismic Toss down, and then I get critically hit. So, yeah, that's fantastic. But I do have my own Raikou. It's not completely over. My opponent, I think, knows what my Raikou set is and knows that in a Calm Mind war, even if they're up one, that my Raikou is kind of favored because it has the additional HP investment. It also has Rest. But I managed to get a nice Thunderbolt on Registeel, calling the Seismic Toss, and then switch the Donphan in on Thunderwave. So this is the best possible case scenario for me. And then my opponent's Registeel was slower than Donphan here, I guess. I don't know how that actually ended up working out, because I don't think I have like any speed investment on Donphan. So kind of strange. Their leftovers went first, so maybe it's a speed tie. I don't know. I can simply go to Vaporeon on their Vaporeon, force them to switch to Raikou. And I'm going to switch immediately to Donphan because I just like, you're not going for Hidden Power. When I've shown Raikou as a pretty viable switch in there. And I could have just stayed in with Vaporeon. Could have been risky for me if they did go for Hidden Power, but I could put myself in a position where I'm forcing the Raikou to kill my Donphan, and then I'm getting a Calm Mind with Raikou. I know that their Breloom doesn't have Mach Punch, so I should just win outright if we end up in a one-on-one with this Raikou. Or at least we're favored to. Obviously, hacks can happen. Gonna go to Vaporeon on their Vaporeon. They can only switch Vaporeon in as a Spike Sack now. Which my opponent does, as I stayed in with my Vaporeon to go for Roar. So they didn't really get that much out of that Spike Sack, which is really good for me. I'm going to go for Wish, which threatens to heal up either Donphan or Raikou. I'm going to actually even sack the entire Vaporeon off to allow myself to go to Donphan, who I know is not going to take that much from Sky Uppercut. And then I am out of Hidden Power range, so Donphan should just clean up and get the kill here, unless I get critically hit. I don't. Bam, there we go. Didn't have to sack the Vaporeon to win that game, but I thought that was a kind of cool sequence, so there we go. What did this game show with Dusclops? Well, it showed that this team is good enough to win without Dusclops, I guess, because, man, this was a clinic on how to get your Dusclops completely owned by Pursuit Tar. This is, we like to learn in a win, if we can, you know, learn from your mistakes, right, but learn from your W's as well, and we just take this as, Dusclops is not a free switch in to a Breloom when they have Pursuit Tar in the back, which is very commonly the case when Breloom is on the team. So that's what this lesson is. Whoops. I completely messed that whole thing up. Let me... Alright. Pretend you didn't see that. Or hear that. We're up against Jet, who I don't know who this is, but whatever. They have a Skarmory. I will go for Spike with my Fortress. I get taunted. Great. I'll go for Rapid Spin to stop them from getting their Spike off. And then I'm going to switch to Raikou as they go for Taunt, which means that I can get a Thunderbolt off on whatever the switch-in is. It happens to be Tyranitar, which I don't 2-hit KO, but I do reveal that they don't have leftovers, which means that they are probably Lumberry, which means that they're either mixed or they are like Adamant DD. I go to Vaporeon to scout, and they go for a Hidden Power Grass. So, I don't know, I guess maybe they knew my team. But that doesn't really do that much to Vaporeon. I can simply go for a Surf, which does a lot of damage to that Skarmory. That is a not very Spadef invested Skarmory at all. They're going to sack the Skarmory for 1 spike, so they better have Gengar, which they do. Now, this team, like I said, does not have a Pursuit Trapper, so we don't really have a great way to handle Gengar. We're going to have to persuade it to switch out, and then try to catch it on switch in to put pressure on it. To do that, we're going to go to Blissey. I know that ABR, on some of the versions of this team that he has, either has no Ice Beam on Blissey, which makes it really, really difficult to handle Gengar, or we'll have some versions where he doesn't have Seismic Toss, which makes it difficult to handle opposing Raikou. So, I kind of split the difference there. We are losing Toxic for doing that. So that's not great. I go for kind of an aggressive switch to Dusclops, anticipating a potential explosion from the Gengar, but I guess it didn't really make that much sense because I wasn't going to be able to do much. I wasn't going to be able to kill the Gengar in one shot anyway, so they might as well take the damage if they can help it. But Dusclops does scare the Gengar out because they don't want to get hit with a Shadow Ball. So I would go for a Will-O-Wisp, which burns the berry from the Tyranitar. Not that it's like super helpful for me, but I mean, like it's okay, I guess. They reveal Rock Slide, so they're mixed, like a true mixed Tar, you could call it. I'll go for Surf and just kill the Tyranitar, and we'll keep Vaporeon kind of just as a sack. I'll go to Raikou, who should be able to take a move from Gengar pretty decent. They actually go for Ice Punch, which is scary. And then they're boomed by Raikou, so maybe they thought that Raikou was scarier than Blissey. Whatever the case may be, I am able to now spin the spikes away, which I will do immediately, as they reveal to be Endeavor Swampert. So they're playing like Big 5, but they made all the sets terrible. Sorry to crap on that, but like Mixtar, no Spadef Skarm, and Endpert on Big 5 is like, that's crazy to me. They might not be Big 5. They may be a little bit more like an offensive variant. But I digress. I am able to switch Vaporeon into a Surf. Because this is Endpert, the only move that it can possibly have to handle Vaporeon is Toxic. Well, I guess it could have Ice Beam, but it was kind of whatever. I am going to switch Vaporeon back in as they reveal Metagross here. Metagross can be a little bit of a nuisance, but I'm going to go for a Protect to scout the Boom. Then I will just go for Surf as they boom at that time, which is not great. They kind of got me there. I could have went to Dusclops to try to catch that, but if they happen to just not be a boom variant of Metagross at all, then like I'm kind of losing some momentum if I do that. Now, granted, Vaporeon usually is going to stabilize that position, but I digress. Dusclops is just going to come in and rest here. Endeavor will not be able to touch Dusclops because it's a a normal move. And Surf is not quite 3-hit KOing. So I can use the Dusclops to pressure away some PP off of Surf here, which maybe will help my Blissey out in the end game. Now, obviously, a critical hit could really like change the tides here. Pun certainly intended. But if we get crit at least on the first turn of Sleep, then like we have some time to be able to respond by going to Blissey, and getting an aromatherapy off. So it's not the end of the world. My opponent roars me into Donphan, which is not great. I'll switch into Blissey now, as they've shown that they do not really have a great way to handle my Blissey with an Endpert here. They're going for a bunch of Surfs. They're just wasting PP at this point. This is what Ferdazi says you shouldn't really be trying to do with Endpert, is 1v1ing Blissey. Now, if you put yourself in a position where all you have to do is endeavor the Blissey on the switch in and then go for your water move to kill, like that's a great spot to be in, but that is not the spot that my opponent finds themselves in. And I'm just able to soft-boiled over and over and over again to make progress here. As they reveal last mon Aerodactyl, which is a sub-Aerodactyl, so this person's just running like some crazy sets overall. Donphan's going to handle that quite well. But obviously we're going to get a switch to Pert here. They go down to 15% and they're able to do some nastiness to my squad here. I go for soft-boiled, kind of expecting a Endeavor, but I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have just taken the kill on their substitute. I'm going to go to Dusclops, and I catch an Endeavor, which is really nice by me, to kind of stabilize that position. I'm going to use Dusclops to break the substitute on the Swampert because I don't really need this Pokemon to handle Aerodactyl, so we'll just do it that way. If I switch Blissey into an Endeavor, I could be in a really bad situation as well. So let's not do all that. Instead, we'll get Endeavored down to 8%. Thankfully, not Sand Range, so that's good. And then Blissey will be staring down this last mon Aerodactyl. Dies to an Earthquake, but that's leads us to a 100% Donphan entry. And Salic Aerodactyl is going to have a really tough time beating Donphan. My opponent's just going to forfeit, not even going to attempt to get 16 flinches in a row. And even if they did get so many flinches in a row, this Donphan has rest. So, yeah. It was going to be kind of cooked from there. Funny team. Just run El Clasico. It's probably my notes for this, but yeah. And then this game here. This is what we've been waiting for. You said, okay, Dusclops kind of did something to Snorlax in one of those games. But, like, I want to see what happens if your opponent has a team where, like, they're banking on Snorlax to get through. Well, there you go. Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays to those who don't celebrate Christmas. That's we stand all that. I get fully parried first turn Thunderwave from the Miltank. That is extremely greedy, as you'll see with this person's team. To not go immediately to the Magneton is pretty freaking greedy. Although, I guess I should say, like, a standard Fortress would have Earthquake, and if I had Earthquake and killed the Magneton, then, like, this game would have been super over, just from turn 2. But I am able to get 3 spikes up because this is one of the weakest Magnetons I've ever seen. I go for Spike again there for no reason. I mean, I could have thrown off, like, I could have rested or thrown off a Hidden Power Ghost, but, like, this doesn't really matter. I would just die to this Magneton either way. So I guess really it's just concealing information, which is very big brain, because I'm gonna, right after this game, post a video that reveals the whole team. So, whatever. Blissey will come in and Seismic Toss on the Magneton as I get parried by Thunderwave. Not cool. It's a really annoying strategy that my opponent has here. We'll go to Metagross as I managed to land a Seismic Toss for 33%. That's huge for me. My opponent has Substitute Metagross, which is weird. But alright. I have Donphan in to sort of 1v1 on the Metagross. I'm going to hazard a guess that if they have Substitute Metagross, they probably don't have Boom, because Sub-Earthquake, Meteor Mash, Boom sounds like a really weird and bad set. Well, it's not, like, I guess it's not bad, but Substitute's not really doing much for you, especially when you have leftovers. But, okay. They will switch to a Salamence here. I don't have Toxic, so I can't really pressure that too terribly well. But I can go to Dusclops as they switch to Miltank here. I'm going to go for a Will-O-Wisp to try to put some pressure down on their team here, but miss it. It's not great, but I managed to land on a Magneton, which is actually pretty good. I'll go to Blissey as they go to Miltank, and they go for a Thunder Wave. So this gamer is just all about the yellow magic. Gotta love that as a whole team structure there. I'm gonna go for Dawn Fan to try to scout out this Miltank a little bit. They do have Body Slam, so another move that can para. I go for Hidden Power Rock, seeing if I could get some damage on Salamence, but no dice. I will go to Dusclops, steal some PP from that Body Slam. I also don't really mind that much if Dusclops gets paralyzed so far in this matchup. They switch immediately to Salamence, who gets burned here, which is, I mean, yes, you do have, with this Miltank, you do have Heal Bell, but you only have 7 more Heal Bells, and you're going to have to Heal Bell to get Salamence back in the game. If you're going to let me use up your Heal Bells, then I will gladly do so. So, yeah. I've got Vaporeon in versus Metagross. I am going to go for Protect because there's no reason really not to. And they do reveal last move Explosion there, which, so, okay. I don't know what the hell their Metagross is. Just run Lumberry for all that. What? Alright, whatever. Now they go to Lax, and I'm like, oh yes, this is the matchup we need. I'm going to get Blissey in to help my Dusclops out here with an Aromatherapy. They go for a second Curse here. This is a little scary because Dusclops switching into a Shadow Ball is going to take a lot, 77 whole percent. But Snorlax is definitely slower, so I can go for Imprison, and they can't finish me off with the next Shadow Ball. If they have Earthquake as their other move, I guess it's GG. But if they had it, they should have went for it right there. Like kind of praying for a Will-O-Wisp miss. Instead, my opponent is going to just stay in and curse up for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Maybe they think they can rest and like get rid of the burn that way, so that Snorlax can come back in later. But because we have rest on our Imprison Dusclops set here, they're not quite able to do that. I am going for Shadow Ball. For no reason, really. I have to click a move and stay in with this Dusclops. And Shadow Ball will at least do some damage to Mence if it switches in. I don't really need Shadow Balls to beat Snorlax in the endgame, so it's not a very valuable move for me. Imprison has 16 PP, and you're probably only going to have to click it a handful of times as well. So you can burn through some Imprison PP as well if it gets down to it. So yeah, it's not a bad spot to be in. But my opponent just kind of stayed in for a really long time with Snorlax, got nothing done, and my Dusclops healed like back up a lot. So I don't think that my opponent played that quite well. So yeah, I'm gonna pivot to Vaporeon on the Salamence to try to roar it out if it Dragon Dances, and then I'm gonna pivot to Blissey on the Magneton because I'm not trying to take a Thunderbolt for no reason. I can go for Seismic Toss here. If I don't get full parried, then I kill the Mag, so that's great for me. And then they reveal Doug Trio here, which is kind of scary because if I get full parried or crit, I will lose my Blissey. But thankfully, I managed to break through with my Ice Beam, so I can keep my Blissey. Dusclops will be coming in on the Miltank. They have to go. They have to go for a Heal Bell. Both of their other Pokemon are burned. But I can kind of switch back and forth between Dusclops and Blissey just to get some healing on Dusclops mostly, but also to burn some PP from this Miltank. I'm going to hazard that the most effective way that I have to beat Miltank is for it to run out of moves. Or at least to run out of Heal Bells and then I get a burn on it. But yeah, the burn on Miltank was quite nice. It forces it to Heal Bell there. I should be out of Body Slam range, so I can go for a Soft Boiled, and I managed to get it right there, which is really nice for me. Now I can Aromatherapy to heal up my Dusclops. My opponent's going to opt for Curse right there, as I'm going to go to Dusclops. I take a Shadow Ball and a Spadef Drop, which is It doesn't really matter that much. I'll go for Imprison right here, right now, so that they can't Shadow Ball me again. No reason to do anything else. Remember, this Snorlax has revealed basically its whole set. Last move is it has to be Rest. It could maybe be like self-destruct. I don't know. Probably not, because you have Magneton for Skarmory, but and this team looks like an all-in on Lax kind of structure. So always Imprison. Rest is like throwing, right? I'm gonna get 2-hit KO'd by Shadow Ball if I go for that. I can always rest on something else. I can rest now on Salamence coming in if I wanted to. Instead, I'm going to go for Will-O-Wisp, because that also is going to handle Salamence quite well. And now I'll rest, because I want Dusclops to get healthy, because I'm going to be... I'm going to need it to switch into some more Shadow Balls from Snorlax, so... I have more confidence that I'm going to be able to Aromatherapy than I am for a 50% Dusclops to handle the Snorlax. I get roared out into Donphan, which makes me think that this is like potentially a Wish Salamence, like maybe like Wish Flamethrower, Roar, and then either Protect or Dragon Claw as the last move, maybe possibly Brick Break, whatever the case may be. Not a set that I was expecting. Whoops, let's replay that. Dang, I can yap forever, can't I? Just gonna be PP stalling a little bit on this Miltank. I get Body Slam Parrot on my Donphan. Whatever, doesn't really matter that much. I could rest my Donphan as well if I really need to, but I don't really need to, so. Salamence comes in on the turn that I go for rest, so maybe that wasn't fantastic for me, but that's okay. I'm going to go to Raikou, because I assumed that they were not like a Dragon Dance set, but they actually do have Dragon Dance, which is Panic Button. I'll have to go to Vaporeon to roar this out. They could fast roar me, which is would have been a smart play. But my opponent instead just decides that they're going to Hacks, and they get the crit with Earthquake, so kudos to them. Very well played. They go for Rock Slide to flinch my Blissey, and they get it. All right, very, very well played from my opponent. It's a very smart gamer who's handsome and deserving of a W. My opponent is not using the turns here to go for Dragon Dance against my Donphan. They crit there. Fantastic. So, once again, a very, very smart gamer who is going for Rock Slide when I think Earthquake had a role to kill. So, once again, a very, very intelligent... If you're watching this, I'm, like, half joking. I mean, I'm kind of mad at all the hacks, I'm not going to lie. At the moment, I was like, I'm not about to lose to this. And thankfully, thankfully for them, my opponent forfeited, because I do remember at the time I was mad and I was thinking, I'm going to not click moves, and I'm going to make the Snorlax and the Miltank struggle. So you avoided the wrath of Tetrafolium for the day here. I'm an evil person, what can I say? Maybe I don't deserve presents for Christmas, but, you know, when you're an adult, you're lucky to just go out drinking for Christmas. It's a little sad, especially when you're not around all your family and all that. Wow, real downer to end this video on Tetrafolium. But that has been Dusclops. It's a fun Pokemon. I've used Dusclops on other teams before, mostly that other Vaporeon team. So maybe there's a little something to Vaporeon plus Dusclops. I mean, certainly there is, because they're both really good mixed walls, and they don't have overlapping weaknesses, and Dusclops loves Wish support, and Vaporeon loves a Pokemon that can do something nasty to set up physical attackers like Snorlax, like Tyranitar. To an extent, I don't think that Dusclops is like really a Tyranitar counter. But if you can get a Wisp on that, then that's great. But yeah, cool Pokemon, cool team. Definitely try it out. Try to hit 1650 on ladder with it and get that ladder achievement. Even if Raikou manages to go up to OU in the new year, you'll still probably be able to use this team for that purpose, because the other 3 UUBLs will most likely stay in UUBL. Although Vaporeon is getting a lot of love, so act fast if you want that sweet Elo and achievement. I was close to it right there, as you can see. Which, I mean, I think this team could definitely hit it, but I've already done it with the Sceptile team. If you want to see my Sceptile video and what that looked like, check that out. But enough stalling. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays to those of you who celebrate other holidays. And I hope you have a good time and a happy new year.